What we're doing here today is demonstrating a concept that I have used or utilized for years in jamming and doing educational workshops with children in schools. So just for the sake of brevity, I call this the clanger, for want of a better name. And the purpose today is to demonstrate how this works and how it can be utilized as a jam instrument, can be utilized as an educational tool, like when I've worked with children. In the past, I have had a version of this. This is more formal than anything I've ever had. And the purpose for that is to make it accessible to people in a very easy way. Teachers, people who jam with other people, and try to go from there. What I've done through the years is where I have these chimes, and these chimes are just simple electrical conduit that I have cut and tuned for this scale of A to A. And let's see, kind of going blank right now. So I will demonstrate what I've done in the past is this is the first time I've ever had this all framed out in such a formal way. What I've done in the past is I've used different chimes. These are conduit, electrical conduit that I've cut and tuned. And in the past I have used various kinds of chimes. Aluminum is usually the best. And what I have done in the past is I've actually set them on waffle foam and set this scale up and played the instrument from something that simple. What I do, the gist of this is that over the years I have charted and different scales that I have come up with out of the standard chromatic 12-tone chromatic scale. And what I've done over the years is I've played the scales or just figured them out as I go. And what I've done is what I do when I do that is that I flip the note out of the primary area of playing. I flip out the notes that I don't want to, or that I've chosen I've chosen a specific scale from the notes that are left in the playing field. What I've done over the years is I've charted something like 60 different scales, 50 to 60 different scales. And at some point what I realized is that when the notes that I flip out of the chosen scale is another scale, so that what I have done is essentially has doubled the number of charted scales, and so I have 100 to 120 different scales. And what comes up is different characteristics of music. You'll hear Oriental music, you'll hear Mid-Eastern, you'll hear different influences that come up that are out there in the world just for anybody to grab if you're listening. So what this allows me to do is to show up at a jam or in an educational setting, and with this instrument sort of charting the way in which students or other musicians can follow the track that the path that this makes for the music to happen in. So let me just demonstrate by choosing a scale. I'll start from scratch and demonstrate how I choose a scale. What I do is I'll play on this. I like that. I'll take that one out. Okay, flip that out. Okay, flip that one out. I like that. Okay. Okay, that seems doable. What I've done is I have chosen the A, the C, the D, the E, the F, the G, G sharp, and A. To demonstrate what I was saying about what gets flipped out, I will play this scale and see if it has some continuity to it. It does. There's 5 notes. Usually the scales that get chosen or identified are 7s and 5s, which is pretty much the way things kind of work on a chromatic scale. So what I would do is, like if I was demonstrating or doing a workshop with children or other people, what I would say is, okay, what we'll do is play according to this scale. And then what you can do, you have the option to identify the notes that you are playing, like either write them on a chalkboard or have a little cards that you set up, and so that people in the audio, or the people you're communicating this with, have 2 options, and either one of them is viable. In other words, if I identify the notes and tell them what they are, that's one thing. The other thing is I like to encourage improvisation, so that when the students or the people playing with you are playing with you, they have, if you're doing it without identifying the notes, then the way you identify the notes is you play them, and you repeat however many repetitions it takes for those people in your audience to get it. You do that until they all kind of groove it in. In other words, you can play them without identifying the notes and let them hear their way to the note with whatever instrument they're playing. So you encourage spontaneity, improvisation, if you will, and you know, guide them into something like that. And then what you have available to you after that is you just sort of apply yourself rhythmically to it. So let me demonstrate with the notes that I've pulled out for this one. So that's a little riff of just, you know, first attempt at something here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is introduce the playing with someone else. This is my longtime associate, Flash.
Hello.
Hello. And he's going to produce a little rhythm to hang this melody on. Is that the right word? Melody? Yeah. It's a
Either Melody or Susan.
Melody or Susan. Yeah, we're going to Susan this. Okay.
So give me a Give me a meter. Is that what you want?
No, you choose the meter and too slow. A little more. Spontaneity. Okay, what we just completed with that was Michael Flash was adding the rhythm, and then I applied that to the tones that I have in place. What I'm going to do is like go to the secondary scale and play to that rhythm again, but using the other scale to show the characterization of the tones when you even with the same rhythm, but just see how it plays differently. All right? All right, here we go. What I'd like to do is I'd like to address the idea of how this can help facilitate people doing music, whether they're older people or even younger people who are maybe don't even have a music background, could possibly make this much easier for them to engage with the music and make it easier for the teacher to introduce it to them. That's one of the very difficult things, is like having material to share with kids that you're teaching music to, and this gives you a wealth of possibilities, because from the charts, from looking at the charts that I provide with this instrument, you can come up with 120 different possibilities for just the scales, and then the possibilities are rather limitless, determined by the kind of rhythms you have. You can have kids who are drummers, get them engaged with picking up, getting a rhythm going before you start with it, or starting with it and then coming up with the rhythm. It's very versatile in terms of the mindset for sharing this idea with kids, or like I said, with full-grown adults. I've used this in music festivals. I've used it busking in the subways in New York City, San Francisco, and it was much simpler than this, but the idea is still the same. In other words, I used to have a children's little plastic xylophone that was the first little busking instrument that I had. And what I would do is I started scratching on the side of the plastic frame that I used. I started charting. That was when I first started charting these scales and identifying them. So what I would do is, with that children's little frame, I would take the notes out and set them off to the side. I didn't have anything this fancy at that time. And with the same results. The results are the same. You get the opportunity to jam, to play with other scales, other characters of music, and that is just a delightful thing. It always enlivens a group of people when you're playing with them. It gives them something to hang their hat on while you're jamming. It gives them a place to go. So, it makes it easy one way or the other. Amateurs or pros, you can go either way. Okay, what I'm doing at this point is actually marking down. I just keep a little simple chart, and then what I do is, what I've been doing is playing this scale, and before I give it up, I'll mark it down and chart it. And so, over time, you can come up with your own scales, but here they are. So what I'm doing is just writing these down, just literally looking at them and marking them on this chart. And A, okay, there's that one. Now, what I'm going to do is just show you simply how I chart these. I put these scales, I put them in twos, so that so all I have to do is identify this half of the two scales. And what I do is, when I've marked them there, then I leave this blank so that I come in and mark it later at my leisure. But I've got this down, so now that means I've got this scale locked in too. So I've got that, and the energy of that scale is mine, or yours, whatever. You'll take something like this and discover your own scales. So, have at it. But I'll get you started with 120 scales. So so you got a lot of room to wear that out before you. But you'll see what it is, because it's very addictive to. I don't know if that's the right word. It's very exciting to have be able to have access to this world of finding notes and charting them, and this will lead to other things like what I do. I like to play. I can't play a normal guitar. The only way I can play a guitar is to open tune it, which is what this is about. It's kind of like an open tuning, and so, as you're doing that, I don't know how to play a guitar in a normal way. I don't know how to play anything in a normal way. And that's why I think this is exciting and opens up a huge arena of possibility for doing music, all kinds of music. I like to sit and listen to the radio, and with something like this, very quickly I can create the scale that's being used on the radio. or a record or a DVD or a CD that you're listening to. You can very quickly, with this instrument, identify what's being played in that music that's coming over the radio or the music that's coming from somewhere else. You can capture the essence of that music with this instrument and have it for yourself. You'll know exactly what it is that's being played. And so, for myself, I'll use scales that I have identified with this to chart. I chart scales that the open tunings that I get from guitars. I have a whole list of scales that I've identified there. So you know you can go either way with it, and it just opens up a whole arena of possibilities for musical opportunity.
And improvisation.
And improvisation. Hand on hand. And improvisation.
And now,